is love in this place. Whenever two or more of us gathered in His name, I thought the world is all the same. There is love in this place. Whenever two or more of us gathered in His name, I thought the world is all. There is love
in many ways, and we want to tell you how much we appreciate you being here with us. And as always, if you have any questions, any comments, you can engage us, and we will surely engage you. This program has been a blessing in many ways, and we have been getting very positive feedback from it. And we look forward to doing many, many more discussions, hoping to help couples, old, middle age, and young, to navigate their relationships. In the period of time that we live in, the era, the 21st century, marriage can be a challenge. Relationships on a whole can be challenging. And therefore, we believe that people need information, need discussions in how to help to have better relationships, have better marriages, and in so doing also create a better society. Here at Lbwradio and Level Up Your Marriage, we believe that marriage is designed by the Almighty God, and that He is the one that sets the rules and guidelines for our relationships, and everything that we do in our relationships must give Him the honor and glory that He deserves. And so we are always going to discuss marriage from a biblical perspective, because that is what we believe in. That's our foundation. And whenever we have any discussion, wherever we go, whatever topic we choose to discuss, it will be done from a biblical perspective, because we are God-centered people, and we believe that all that we do must be done to the honor and glory of the Almighty God. We thank Raquel for being here. We were on a hiatus. We were on vacation, and we had a very, very good vacation. And, we are here refreshed and ready to go to have more discussions to, help build and promote the institution of marriage, and also to help God's people. Raquel, any words for our audience as we get ready to begin our discussion?
Well, good evening again. It's great to be back. We just want to tell you thanks. Thanks for following us, participating, supporting us, encouraging us. We are excited about this program, Leveling Up Your Marriage on the Lbwradio network. And we believe this is part of God's calling for our life. And this evening we want to talk about
setting boundaries.
Setting boundaries in marriage.
In marriage. Boundaries in marriage. And this is a subject. The whole idea of boundaries is not anything new. And we hear it a lot in the workplace and in school and all of that. But oftentimes we really don't discuss boundaries in a relationship, and most importantly, boundaries in the marital relationship. And somebody may ask, why do we need boundaries in marriage? I mean, aren't these two people, haven't they agreed to be together forever? And what is mine is yours, and what is yours is mine, and all of that. Why do we need to have boundaries? Why can't we just get involved in each other's business and live happily ever after? But I want to say that boundaries really are important to all aspects of life, including marriage. And we want to, dive into this particular topic tonight in discussing boundaries in marriage. And are they important? Are they relevant? Is it a given that we should have boundaries in marriage? I think the first place that we want to begin is really to look at a kind of working definition of what a boundary is, or boundaries in relationships. So relationship boundaries are really guidelines and limits that individuals will set within the context of a relationship to protect their well-being, to protect their autonomy, and also their integrity. Boundaries are what we use to define behaviors that are acceptable and unacceptable, and they help us to ensure that both of us as partners feel respected in the relationship, feel valued, and also feel safe. And these boundaries can either be physical, they can be emotional, they can be intellectual, sexual, digital, financial, and a wide variety of other things. And what they do is that they vary based on our personal comfort levels, our values, our cultural norms. And what they do is that they establish and maintain, clear defining your boundaries that are essential for the healthy and respectful balance of our relationships. And so that is a kind of working definition of what a boundary is. You know, we often use boundaries in terms of protecting self, but this evening we want to look at boundaries in terms of protecting the relationship. Because we know marriage is not just about one person, but it's about the partnership. And what we are trying to do is to help persons preserve their partnerships, preserve their relationships. So we want to look at boundaries in the context of not protecting self necessarily, even though we are going to speak somewhat of protecting self, but we want to focus more importantly on those boundaries that help to protect the relationship, not only to protect the relationship, but also to help the relationship to become a lasting union, one that is not in a system of endurance, but rather enjoyment, right? Because one of the things we believe at Level Up Your Marriage is that we were not placed in this unique relationship called marriage to endure it. We were placed in it to enjoy it. And so as we get into our discussion tonight, please feel free to leave a question or a comment wherever you are, whether you are joining from somewhere in the Caribbean, or you are in Africa, you're in the USA. Let us explore this, topic a little bit more, and see what we can learn from this discussion.
Uh,
Go ahead.
yes, in listening to you and in thinking it through, God, God who created marriage
Mm-hmm.
also has boundaries. He set boundaries for us
That's
as
right.
human beings. He set boundaries for the angels, and he also set boundaries even for couples.
That's right.
So the creator of it all definitely believes in boundaries. And sometimes persons think about boundaries from the negative point of view, that you can't say no, or you always have to say yes. It's much more than that. And as you mentioned earlier, that boundaries help to maintain, of course, individuality, but it also helps to minimize misunderstandings.
Mm-hmm.
It provides a guideline or even a safe space and a
That's right.
trusting environment in terms of the interaction between husband and wife, also between the emotional and physical interactions.
That's right. True.
When
True.
sometimes people think about boundary, one of the things that he might think about, well, I shouldn't be scrolling through Paul's phone without his permission, or he should be scrolling through my phone without his permission, or those kind of things. But boundaries extend to many different aspects of the relationship. But
Yes.
before we get into that part of it, we possibly want to look at how soon should you set these boundaries. What do you think before you begin, when you're courting, when you soon after you say I do, or when do you think is the best time to be thinking about and to be discussing about boundaries?
I would want to say, Raquel, that from the moment you are getting into a relationship that has the potential to be serious, there ought to be some understanding of boundaries. And again, remember, the boundaries are set so that the relationship remains a safe space.
Yes.
And so there must be some understanding that we have to set some boundaries. And one of the things is that boundaries may look different at different stages of your relationship.
Correct.
Right? So it can start out one way, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to progress along the same line, because as we become comfortable in our relationship, and as we grow in our relationship, then our boundaries may be altered and they may even change. Right? But I believe from the onset, there ought to be some understanding that there must be some boundaries that are set at the initial stage. And just to give you an example, when we and this again, we are discussing from a Christian perspective. We know that one of the challenges that couples will always have when they start a relationship, and in a Christian context, the whole idea of sexual attraction. And if boundaries are not set where that is concerned, we can find ourselves in serious problems. If both parties don't have an understanding of first and foremost, what is it in our relationship that pleases God, and then what is it that we are going to set in this space that we don't violate God's commandments, and that requires that both parties have an understanding of boundaries.
Yes, and to segue in terms of the fact that you said in terms of that you will meet God's guideline, but also that you meet the individual guidelines,
That,
because
yes, true, true.
male and female courting, um, each individual will have their respective boundaries. Whether it's a physical boundary or an emotional boundary. Um, sorry. So boundaries are important to the individual. What might be a big boundary and important issue for me might not be such an important issue for you.
That's right. True.
And so
True.
having the discussion and setting the boundaries early helps to build a strong foundation in the relationship for healthy communication, to minimize misunderstanding. What's happening to my throat?
And there must be some discussion that takes place where the boundaries are concerned, because as you rightly said, I can have one boundary and you have another boundary, and there is no discussion as to what these boundaries are until at some point in time they converge on the relationship, and that can cause problems in the relationship. So there must be some discussion uh, of what these boundaries are. What are my boundaries? What are your boundaries? And how are we going to use these boundaries as a means of protecting the relationship and creating that safe space where both of us can grow in the relationship. So the question is, why is setting boundaries in a relationship important? Right? Why is setting boundaries in a relationship important? And we said a little bit on it before, that boundaries are important because they are a means of ensuring that there is mutual respect in the relationship, that it promotes healthy communication, it protects the well-being of both parties. And here's one of the things that oftentimes we overlook. If boundaries are set in the relationship from a very early stage, it is also indicating that we have each other's interests at heart, that we are bent on doing our best to make sure that both of us are protected in the relationship, not just to protect ourselves, but most importantly, to please and honor God. Because everything that we do is going to go back to that reference point of what is it that honors and please God. So boundaries help, as we said, to maintain our identity in the relationship. And this is one of the things that we will want to look at, probably expand a little bit, probably at some other point. Because one of the things that consistently happens in relationships, and unfortunately I think it more so happens to women than even men, is that sometimes we lose our identity in the relationship. You kind of become a mirror image of the other person. And many times that happens because the boundaries were not discussed. You kind of just absorb yourself into the other person. And so, probably that's a whole other discussion on maintaining identity in the relationship. Boundaries also, Raquel, help to prevent misunderstanding.
Yes, and I want to. Sorry, I'm having a little throat problem here. It's a little dry. Please allow me to have some water. Thank you. I know you'll understand that. As you spoke earlier about losing one's identity, that's also an important element of when we discuss boundaries, because persons can be guilty when they take on a husband or a wife. They forget their friends, they forget their families, and you don't want to be losing one's identity as you take on marriage. It's important that the two individuals remain healthy and strong and viable as two viable individuals. And when you continue to come together in the relationship, then it's important now that the discussion about, because that's also a boundary issue.
Yeah, true.
It's also a boundary issue where I must be able to go out and have fun with my friends, interact with my family, and the same thing for you. And as in the process of doing that, then we're becoming stronger. We're developing ourselves, and which will all also augur well for the relationship.
Yes, true.
So that is definitely one of the boundary issues that couples should talk about, where you definitely don't want to lose yourself and you don't want to lose your friends.
Yeah, true.
At least not all of them. Sometimes you might have to give up one or two, or you might have to adjust the relationship with some of your friends.
Yeah.
Or
True.
even a family member.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Yeah. And these things might sound very, very simple, but they are actually very critical to maintaining the stability in the relationship.
True.
So, as we said, that setting boundaries also help to prevent misunderstandings. And oftentimes I think this is one of the things that we don't really pay attention to. We often enter relationships taking it for granted that all of us understand things the same way. We are on the same page.
And many times that's not so.
And many times, probably more times than not, it is not so.
Yes.
Right? So again, it prevents misunderstanding. It helps to create a safe space where both parties can strive emotionally and also physically.
Yeah.
Right? And so our agreement is that, because the question was asked, how soon?
Yeah.
From very early.
From the get-go,
from the earliest from the start that's gone or goes off.
Yes.
There must be some understanding of boundaries and how you are going to establish them and how they will affect the relationship. So what we want to do now is really to break apart some of this particular discussion to looking at what are the types of boundaries that exist, and to have some discussion around this. This may not be a one-part discussion. We often get into starting a discussion and realize that it requires more than one discussion. So this may not be a discussion for tonight alone. We might have to do a part 2 of it, depending on how much we go through tonight. But again, if you are on listening or you are watching us on any platform, again, if you have any burning question, if you have a comment that you want to, drop in the chat, please feel free to do so. We are people who love to engage our audience and we like to answer questions. If we can't answer questions here tonight, we can promise you that we'll go and do some research and get the answer that is required. And again, our answers will be biblically based because we believe in that power of God that He gives us to do His will in everything that we do. So, boundaries. What types of boundaries are there? I think the first one we can look at is physical boundaries.
Most people can relate to that.
And most people can relate to that.
Yeah.
But here is it, Raquel, and maybe we can open the can of worms some early.
My voice can keep up.
Whenever we talk about physical space or physical boundaries, we're talking about personal space, don't it?
Yes.
And that's the first thing that comes to my mind, my personal space.
Mhm.
And in 2024, we talk a lot about personal space, don't it? Everybody is in this thing now, they want their personal space, and you must not invade my personal space. But here's a question. Do we need personal space in marriage?
Of course. Why not?
Yeah, but the Bible says,
Leave and cleave.
you shall leave your mother and father and cleave unto your wife, and the two shall become one flesh.
Yes, but we just spoke about the fact that
So why do we need personal space in marriage?
Because we continue to be unique individuals. We continue to be unique individuals, and so it's actually healthy for the relationship.
Mhm.
Because we can, when you mentioned this, I remember during the time of COVID when everybody was stuck at home, and I was surprised when it says, okay, that's the time more marriages were falling apart.
Yes,
because persons couldn't bear to be in the same space with their loved ones or spouse for the entire day, for the entire week, for the entire month. And wow,
So,
that was
a lot of personal space was invaded.
yes. So we have evidence that the importance of personal space, because each person in his or own unique way will need some time apart, and then the time apart will also will add to the time when you come back together. You have things to share. Sometimes people just need space to think. So that's why people, one of the misunderstandings is that I had a young female who shared with me that she thought that when she got married that she always had to be in conversation. If you're watching the TV, you're watching the TV together. If you're washing the dishes, you're washing the dishes together. And she was really what's the word now, surprised or dumbfounded that it didn't work like that. And
you see why discussion has to take place.
yeah.
Right? And that Raquel might come from a cultural position,
Yes.
that may be how she was grown up,
Or maybe what she saw on TV.
Or maybe what she
in the
saw on
movies,
TV, in the movies.
or just
And imagine her husband coming from a totally different background where this whole thing of always being in each other's space was not something that he was used to.
right.
So imagine when those two persons come together now and one person wants personal, one person wants to be all up in your business.
One person just want to go
and the other person doesn't mind having a little time
away.
Yes,
and as you talk about that, one of the great poems, Khalil Gibran talks about that there must be space in your togetherness.
There must be. Oh Lord, say that for me. I like that. There must be space in your togetherness. I like
Gibran,
that.
Khalil Gibran is one of those famous authors that he always mentioned that, and there's value in that comment.
Yeah, true.
You
true.
know, it adds to the conversation we're having here. There
So
ought to be space in your family.
what I hear you saying is that there must be respect for personal space.
Yes.
So even though we are married, we are together, we love each other to death, hopefully not to death, but we love each other and all of that, and we have the lovey-dovey feeling and all of that. But there must
But of
be
course,
respect.
you don't have to be in my ear
There
all
must
the
be
time.
respect
Yeah.
of personal space.
Yes, man.
Right? And I think it is a fallacy. It's a real fallacy for us to sell the idea that when couples and I notice that young couples actually struggle with this in the early stages of marriage, you know, and it comes with how we are socialized a lot of times. When that initial stage of when we after the wedding day is finished and we come into that space, and especially if you live in a small house, like when we got married in the 1-bedroom apartment, you can get to a point where you're stepping over each other's toes on a regular basis, you know.
And that's just
And it becomes sometimes a very ugly argument.
Yes, frustrating and annoyance and just you know, so
there must be some discussion taking place about respecting each other's personal space and physical and physical autonomy, right? Even though and again we might get into somebody says absence makes the heart grow fonder. Yes, true. And the longer you're married, the more this becomes a reality. Right? The longer you're married, the more this becomes a reality, and especially when children come into the mix. Because one of the things that we strongly believe also is that as you grow your family, as you grow your marriage, as you grow in this relationship, and especially when children come into the picture, every now and then mommy needs a day off. Every now and then daddy needs a day off also, sometimes week or two. Right? So
why you need week or two and I just get 1 week?
No, I really mean both parties. Right? Yeah, sometimes you need a breather, right?
Yes.
And again, we find that women again kind of suffer more from this because women, because of the motherly role that women play, for the early part of children's lives, they tend to stick a lot to to mommy. Right, mommy is sometimes the first one that they engage with on a daily basis. Right, the mommy carries them for 9 months. Mommy is the first person that they have contact with, and sometimes mommy can become overworked and overwhelmed.
Yes,
especially when she has 2 and 3 and 4 and 5.
So
Right?
so the one of the buzzword now is about self-care.
True.
And
yes.
and even the pediatricians always tell the moms, especially the new moms, that when the baby is sleeping, get some sleep. When the baby is eating, or the importance of even that time away, because yes, you're happy to have your baby, yes, you're happy to be married, but it's also important to take time to rest, to take time for self-care, to take time to rejuvenate,
and again,
quiet time
Raquel, that
as
goes back to what we started with first. When we understand the importance of boundaries, it helps us also to understand the importance of things like self-care.
Correct.
Right?
Definitely.
So you see how boundaries are important?
And so as you make that point, I just want to put a plug that it is something that should also be discussed in premarital counseling.
Yes, true.
And the discussion should continue after you get married, because as you said earlier, that the level of boundaries will change.
Yes.
as you grow
in
the relationship.
As the relationship grows. True.
Yeah.
True. So we're on physical boundaries, and we just looked at personal space. But Raquel, what about affection? What about affection?
What about
And
it?
this is where now the can of worms get wider. Because we know affection is important in a relationship, right? And a lot of times, Raquel, one party is more affectionate than the other.
Right, and in different places and spaces.
And different places and spaces.
Yeah, so
some people like
to be holding hands.
To be, a lot of PDA, public display of affection.
And some persons,
some people don't.
And some people don't take kindly to that.
Some people don't take kindly to that.
Right, and so the point.
So how do we navigate that?
You're going to have the discussion.
Right.
Bring it up, talk about it.
You must be
and have the discussion before the incident happens.
But me know you like get close to me.
Not everywhere, not all the time.
I know you like, as in the Jamaican saying, you like hitch on to me.
And that's fine, and because as you said, we love each other, we want to be in each other's company.
Mm-hmm.
But because we are two different individuals, two unique individuals, it's important now for you and as we were making the point, sometimes people joke about this, that when a woman is having her monthly flow, she might not be in that mood, she might not be in that space.
True.
And so there has to be constant discussion. There has to be the element of honesty is such an important word.
Yes, true.
That must always come up when we're talking about boundary.
Yeah, true.
Because individuals have to feel that they can be honest
enough
to share their concerns, to share their boundary issues, to share the guidelines or the limits, so that you can prevent the misunderstanding, minimize the misunderstanding.
True. And as we are on this subject of affection,
yes,
it brings to forward that there must be a discussion taking place when the relationship begins, as the relationship grows, as it progresses, of our different comfort levels of affection.
Yes.
Right? And again, let us use some examples, because we know for a fact, the research is out there, that women tend to be far more affectionate than men. Mm-hmm. And especially in showing affection, right? And it has to do a lot with how, I really don't want to say emotionally wired, but that is what it is. That women tend to be on the more emotional side. And it is not saying that men are not emotional, by the way. Not saying that.
It's just how it's demonstrated.
Right? But
how it's demonstrated.
We know for a fact that, what I would say, Raquel, I think affection come naturally for most women. Not saying all, for most women. But I think for men, I think affection is something that has to be learned.
Yes. Okay.
Right?
That's reasonable.
So many times the problem comes in, Raquel, that the discussion doesn't take place where affection is concerned. And oftentimes we take it for granted that the other person should know what I want. But no discussion was had before.
Right. Remember our previous discussion about communication in marriage, and that the element of the unspoken
expectations. Yes, yes.
And so the element of communication will always run through every discussion that we have.
Mm-hmm.
The importance of communication. The importance of boundaries. And so, although persons might think, why are we having a discussion about boundaries? Mm-hmm. We're seeing here the importance of having such a discussion.
Yeah, true.
Because it runs through every aspect of our lives.
Yes, true.
And how much more in a marriage, where two persons from two different walks of life, they're coming together, they're forming a family, they're going to possibly raising children.
Yeah.
And of course, you're going to be interacting with in-laws. So because boundaries also extend to the in-laws.
Yes,
boundaries
true.
extend to the children.
Don't go there yet. Don't go there.
Okay,
We're going there. We're going there. Don't go there yet. That's why I tell you that we have another part of the discussion.
Yeah.
But let me ask Raquel. And when we have these kind of discussions, one of the best things to do is to be practical.
Yes.
So we're talking about affection and boundaries where affection is concerned. But Raquel, what if I don't like to be kissed in public? What if I don't like to hold hands in public? What I am uncomfortable, and this is an example, not say because you know me. I am uncomfortable showing affection in public, but you are the one who would melt away into my arms.
So,
How do you bring those two things together?
well, I think the first thing that comes to mind is that we have to talk about it.
Mhm.
We have to have that safe space where I can say to you, Paul, my dear, my honey, this is how I feel about it. And we'll talk
Yes.
about the element of feeling that I can be honest with you. And then while I'm honest, I also you have to we need to extend that grace towards
Yes.
me that
Yes.
in my honesty, you're not going to be rejecting me.
True.
You're not
True.
going to be saying, what kind of madam man this man married? For let me speak the English and not the Jamaican patois. But the idea is that in that process, the level of honest, I have to feel safe. I have to feel at ease that I can say to you, Paul, this is a little concerning for me.
Mhm.
It's not that I don't love you. It's not that I don't want to be affectionate toward you. But at this time, in these circumstances, I'd rather us do something different.
True.
And
True.
so that the back and forth, the discussion, the openness that says you're being kind
Mhm.
to listen to what I have to
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
and being considerate. And sometimes you might not understand or you might not appreciate, what's happening or why I have my reservations about something. But the element is there that
And that's why
it's
the
important to listen
discussion
and to have the
the discussion
discussion.
has to take place. You know, as you said that, Raquel, something came to my mind a while ago, that a lot of times what happens in our relationships, and especially at the early stages of our relationship, we're having a freak storm outside.
Yes,
And
there's a
that's
freak
why I am
storm.
looking surprised.
Yes, there's a freak storm.
Sometimes the mask, we, in the early stages of the relationship, we wear a mask. And so a lot of times, even this whole idea of affection, where I may be uncomfortable with something, but I don't make it known because the relationship is new. So I kind of put on this mask and I wear it throughout until it becomes a point where I become so comfortable wearing the mask now that no discussion takes place. And then I move into a different phase of the relationship and it becomes a problem
Yeah.
because there is an expectation from the other party that my needs are going to be met in this particular area. And because I've been wearing a mask, and when I come, get more serious in the relationship, I remove it. Raquel was also agreeing with me. Uh, Many people really don't have a problem. Many couples don't necessarily have a problem showing affection in private, and it can be a problem because I have known couples that have a problem showing affection, whether in public or private. But that's another discussion. So for the most part, couples don't have a problem, with private shows of affection. Mostly in public, we find the problem, and so that discussion of our comfort levels of affection, of showing affection, is something that must be discussed, and some understanding you must come to some kind of understanding as a couple as to how you will go about showing affection, and what is it that you're comfortable with and what is it that you're not comfortable with. different persons are comfortable with different things. You have couples, they don't mind kissing in public. They don't mind holding hands in public. They don't mind, playing in public, all of that. But it is necessary for the discussion to take place. All right, Raquel, you have anything to add?
Just to repeat or reiterate the point about the importance of feeling safe, or being able to feeling that you can be honest in sharing one's feelings, and then while one is being honest, then the other party, we hope, will extend grace, will extend that feeling of unconditional love, that as one is being vulnerable, as one party is being vulnerable, and the other party will receive it with grace, will receive it with the support that it requires. Because being honest is can be hard for some persons, can be difficult for some persons. And so in relationship, in marriage, discussion about boundaries and what are your preferences and so on, it's important, it's necessary, but sometimes it might be difficult for individuals, based on what might have happened to them in the past, based on traumatic experiences, or sometimes based on how they were raised, how somebody is raised. So it's important that when all of these things come together, that the individual should be commended or congratulated for being honest, but also the other party should extend grace and that unconditional love and support that says, I appreciate the honesty, and the intent is not to hurt or to harm, but the intent is to share what's happening, so that that you can have. We talk about the benefits of setting boundaries. One of them, we talk about avoiding misunderstanding. We talk about maintaining the individualities, and also creating that environment of trust. And so we see that these benefits of setting boundaries will only augur well for the relationship in the early days, and as the relationship continues to grow.
Yeah. Well, as we look at physical boundaries, Raquel, what about privacy though? And this is a big one, right? And it can be a ticklish one for many people. How much privacy should we allow in our relationship?
Some privacy, but it like the point that will run through the entire discussion is the element of talking about it. It's the element of open
Should
discussion.
you search my phone?
It all depends on. I guess it all depends on the circumstance. I wouldn't necessarily say no. But generally,
Let us hear.
But all depends on the circumstance. But generally, no. I don't think you should search my phone, or I should search your phone. But as I said, it all depends on the circumstances. But privacy doesn't only relate to the matter of the phone. It can also relate to just somebody wanting to have time alone. Somebody also being able, that I don't have to tell you everything that's on my mind, or every experience that I might encounter in a day.
Yes, true.
So it doesn't only relate to a phone, or searching through somebody's purse, or wallet. So the element is that in the grand scheme of things, you remain an individual, I remain an individual, but there should be some level of trust that I can have my own thoughts about something, and I don't have to tell you about it.
So I hear you saying, we can reserve the right to keep some things to ourselves.
Yes, but
and it doesn't become a point where you are being accused of keeping a secret.
Right. But you see, that comes with maturity. That comes with having a discussion about it, and that comes with and I guess I would say growth again, which is maturity, where will give you that level of assurance that I'm not out to get you. I'm not trying to hide anything from you.
True.
But it's also important that I remain me. I remain myself. And also, I guess we can extend it a little to some degree where in our roles as counselors, when we have persons might share something confidential with me or with you, and it has to remain confidential
Yes,
with me or
true,
with you.
true.
So you have instances like that where it's that there's privacy there,
Yes,
where
true.
I wouldn't be coming home to talk to you about something that somebody has shared with me in confidence, and you would not be doing that.
Yeah.
And it also comes now to the point where I might have a personal encounter, or personal thought, or something personal that I might not be ready yet to share it with you,
Or you might not want to share.
or I might not want to share it with you. And it's not like I'm trying to hide it, or I'm trying to be underhanded about it. It just might just be a situation where there's not a need to share it with you, or I might not want to share it with you.
And it's all right. It is all right. And but you made an important point that comes with growth.
Yes, it comes
Right.
with growth.
And persons in relationships have to be willing to go through that growth period, right? And it can be very daunting, and especially the early stages of marriage. It can be a very daunting thing. And again, sometimes how we are socialized a lot of times will cause those kind of problems also, where and it's something we probably going to look at it, probably not tonight, but I don't think that we discuss enough, Raquel, the importance of maintaining identity in a relationship, your individuality.
Yes.
Right? I don't think we discuss that a lot, and this is where a lot of times the whole boundaries become obscured, right? And sometimes we mix up boundaries for other things that have nothing to do with boundaries, right?
Correct.
Right, and cause mayhem and all kind of things in the relationship, because one, we are socialized incorrectly, and we have a misplaced understanding of how our relationships ought to work, right? And so sometimes, we from time to time we have persons in counseling where one person believes that, boy, I have no protected space in the relationship. You're just all up into me. Right? Yeah, it is almost as if I can't breathe.
Right.
Right?
And so you made a very good point that that's something that that's another discussion that is absolutely necessary, whether on this forum or we use another or we other platform. But it's so important in terms of the importance of maintaining one's individuality, even in a marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Even in a marriage, because without that, like you said, you feel trapped. People feel trapped. Without that, people feel that you can't say no, or you always have to say yes. You feel overwhelmed. You feel stifled.
Yeah.
And so and
Right. That is too much boundary.
and that can have a negative effect on the relationship.
That's true.
People would want out.
True.
People want they didn't bargain for that. They want out, and so
Because that's not what you were looking for in the relationship.
yeah.
You don't want to enter the relationship and then you just lose your whole self, because you feel overwhelmed. You feel
Trapped.
trapped, like a weight is placed on you that you didn't want. And so this whole idea of maintaining my individuality, you maintaining your individuality, is very important.
Right.
And that boundary thing takes an honest discussion.
Right, and it's something that I just want to put it out there that every female and every male should fight for it. Should aim to maintain that in their individuality. And as I use the word fight in quotation, it means that it's something that you should make a strong effort, be intentional about maintaining
yes,
in your marriage.
yes,
You know,
yes,
and if there's a challenge in having a discussion, then seek help.
yes,
You know,
yes,
I'm pausing to make this point because we know that it's something that can, it's an issue, it's a matter that can have detrimental effect on the individual and on the marriage.
yeah,
So like I'm pausing here to be intentional and to be clear about it, that in the event that any wife or any husband feels that they have lost or they're losing themselves in the marriage, they are unable to maintain their individuality, it's time to pause. It's time to get some help, whether somebody who is trained as a counselor, as a psychologist. Maybe you might speak to your minister or somebody who can assist in one way or another to have that open conversation about it. To you do or do some reading, do some research, and of course pray for courage, because as we talk about the element of honesty, the element of being courageous, because if it's not addressed, it can have a negative impact on the
yeah,
relationship.
yes.
What are your thoughts?
I
Agree?
no, I honestly, you have said it all. I don't think I even need to add anything to that because you have said it.
Yeah.
You have wrapped it up.
All right. So what's our next point? We're moving to
Giselle says nobody wants to feel trapped, and that is true, Sister Giselle. That's very true. Nobody enters a relationship to feel trapped.
Mhm.
And I can tell you, one of the worst feelings you can have in a relationship is to feel you are trapped and have no way out.
Yeah.
Right? It is not, it's not a good feeling. You
Mhm.
don't ever want to have that feeling. And as Raquel said, if it's something that, if you're on the platform and you are having that kind of experience in your relationship, it's really an indication that you need help, right? Because you don't, I mean, when persons feel trapped in a relationship, what you end up going in is living in survival mode.
Mhm.
You constantly exist
Yeah.
in survival
It can
mode.
kill you. Can give you a
Yes,
heart attack,
yes.
a stroke.
So physical, that's physical boundaries. Let us move into another one, Raquel. Emotional boundaries. We
I
have
think
we have a whole heap of
I
boundaries to
think
discuss.
we were dabbling in some of the emotional
Right?
boundaries
So
not
yes,
so
so
long
yeah, we
ago.
were looking at some of them.
Yeah.
Right. So emotional support. Again, this is something that many times a lot of discussion doesn't take place. Be clear about how much support you can offer and when you need support yourself. We take it for granted that we should know what each other need. Yeah. So when Raquel see my face look a particular way, she's supposed to know that I need support. And when I see Raquel look a certain way, I supposed to know that she need to be supported emotionally. It don't work like that. Say what is on your mind. Ask for what you need. Yes, it is true that as we grow in our relationships, our partners can pick up different signals,
Mhm.
right? But don't take it for granted. It's not something that we have to take for granted. And many times we enter in our relationships that lead into marriage having absolutely no discussion of what we need emotionally. And not only what we need, Raquel, but what we can give. Because it's one thing to expect something. But what about the fact that even as men, sometimes many of us are emotionally handicapped? Many of us as men are not in tune to our emotions.
True.
And the unfortunate thing is that you can't give what you don't have. Right?
Mm-mm.
You cannot be for someone emotionally. You cannot give to someone emotionally if you don't understand your own emotions. Right? And it is quite natural that if you are in a marriage, in a relationship, that the other party expects you to add to them emotionally or to give to them emotionally.
Yeah, but like you say, it has to be. There has to be, what emotional support do you need?
Mm-hmm.
What emotional support do I need? What emotional support can I give to you? You know, um, and this is an important aspect too,
Mm-hmm.
where uh, couples sometimes might overlook it, and probably when they become overwhelmed, they're feeling overwhelmed, so pressed down, that they explode.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's important to have the discussion. It's important to take time to, and as I'm speaking here, that's why it's important for the privacy, or for the individual time.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody says absence make the heart grow
Yeah.
fonder.
Sometimes you have to sort out your feelings.
Sometimes you have to take time to sort out yourself
Yeah,
first, and
you
then
have to take time to
come back.
sort out your feelings.
Exactly,
Sometimes.
exactly.
Because
And
every time, sometimes we get into the space where we can't even express our emotions sometimes.
right,
And we kind of need time to process.
right, and
Right.
yeah, there's a comment.
Jesus says, in that case, changing your individuality is important. You develop characteristics that are necessary for a healthy relationship. Wonderful, wonderful. I like that. I like that. I like
Yes,
that.
thanks
Right?
for that.
You know, and as you hit that point, Giselle, we must be aware that as we progress in our relationships, we change.
Right, and hopefully for the better.
Yes.
Hopefully
For the
better.
no. Well, I am taking it for granted
I'm
that it
just
is
playing.
for the better.
Yes, it is for the better, and it's that's such an important point. I want to write it down, Giselle. I think that point is so important. If you could you read it again for us?
Right? In that case, changing your individuality is important. You develop characteristics that are necessary for a healthy relationship. So and again, it's a biblical principle, right? The whole idea in Romans chapter 12, verse 1 and 2, that we must not be conformed to this world, but we must be transformed by the renewing of our minds. So initially, if we start off in one space in our relationship and it is not serving us, what do? You change.
Right.
You transform.
You transform.
Because if your whole intention is for your relationship to survive and be harmonious and be something that you enjoy, then you are going to do what it takes to make sure that happens.
But how do you navigate now with somebody who is so selfish, or somebody who is so oblivious?
Get counseling.
So oblivious to what's happening, or who is of a selfish nature, who
True.
is not
True.
willing to take it on.
Yeah. But self-awareness is important. Self-awareness is important.
But there are so many persons who are not self-aware.
Who are not self-aware.
There are wives who are not self-aware. There are husbands who are not self-aware. And I guess it might be useful to add at this point that sometimes in marriage, we need to have hard conversations with each other.
Yes.
Because
hard conversations are hard conversations.
hard conversations.
Hard conversations.
Right.
That's right. True.
So hard because you don't want to hurt.
Mm-hmm.
The intent is not to hurt, or the intent, but maybe and that's why it's hard, because it might be something that's hard to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Something hard to accept.
True.
But the hard part comes in now, that the intent, the motive, the inspiration is for growth. The inspiration is for development. The inspiration is that it's gonna be a healthy move towards a harmonious or to a better relationship.
Yes.
So that's something to, as in terms of researching or preparing for the discussion about boundaries in marriage, that some persons encounter challenges when it comes to setting boundaries. Out of fear, out of not wanting to come across as being mean. But we see in the discussion so far that setting healthy boundaries, having these hard
Well,
conversations
you're firing off some gems,
are so
here
important,
tonight.
are so important.
Hard conversations.
Yes.
Yes, I like that.
Yes.
I think I will use it.
All right.
Right,
You have
hard conversation.
we put that in the book that we are writing.
Right.
Yeah.
You must have some hard conversations.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. Yeah. And you said it very right. Emotional expression is another part of the emotional thing that we're discussing. That we must respect each other's ways of expressing emotions, whether through words, actions, or alone time. But we know the tug of war that one cause, right? You express emotions one way, I express emotions another way, and sometimes they don't overlap, right? I have an expectation that you need to express emotions this way. You have an expectation that, and sometimes it just doesn't converge, just doesn't overlap, right? Again, it goes back to when we are in the relationship and we are growing in the relationship, then the conversation needs to take place. How do we express emotions? How do we express emotions? And again, this comes back again. So a lot of times, how we express emotions is based on our socialization.
Yeah.
And so it is important that we understand our socialization in the conversation itself. Right? And it's not just no, I don't want to use the word to find a place of compromise, but really to find a place of understanding. Right?
And so it's important that persons allow themselves to mature before you contemplate marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Because as in every aspect of the discussion so far, we realize that there's some level of maturity is required, some level of openness is required, or a lot of openness is required, but also a lot of willingness to realize that marriage is not about me, myself, and I.
Mm-hmm.
Marriage, when somebody takes on marriage, it's now about us.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's now about us working as a team. It's about working as companions, as partners. And so, if you're having a discussion about a partnership, it can't be about my needs only.
Yeah, true.
It
I
can't be
agree.
about your needs only.
I agree.
And so it's important that.
So yeah, and we all need alone time, don't we?
Oh yes.
Yes, man. We need. Yeah, I agree.
I don't want you in my skin all the time. I need a break from you sometimes.
Right.
But it's important that we make time together to be together too. Talk about couples time, and we were on vacation, and we got some time to have couples time, to do something together, to build memories together, and so couples need alone time with each other.
Yes, true.
And
because
need individual time
a lot of times, Raquel, we look at boundaries only in terms of time set apart, in terms of individuality.
Right.
But boundaries can also mean time set apart for the couple.
That's right.
Time set apart for children.
Yes.
Time set apart for different aspects of our lives.
Correct.
Right. So it's not just about us removing ourselves from each other's presence.
Yes.
Right. And which is a mistake that every time, and well, let me not say every time, but most times we hear the word boundaries. What we think of is one party going east and the other one going west. And we do whatever we want to do, and then no, that's not how
it's not always about that.
There are several different aspects of establishing boundaries that ought to lead to having a healthier relationship. All right. We have. I really don't want to get any deeper into the discussion tonight, because and we'll have to turn this discussion probably into a 3-part discussion, because there are so many things that we have not discussed yet. We have not even started touching the surface yet. We just give the introduction basically, right? And so I want to end the discussion tonight on emotional boundaries, right? So we discuss the importance of emotional support, the importance of emotional expression, and the last thing I want to touch on just for a little bit is the whole idea of being vulnerability, to understand each other's comfort levels with sharing personal and sensitive information. Again, this has to do with how we are socialized again, right? And many times, Raquel, we create issues in the relationship when we have one person who shares a lot and one who shares too little.
Yeah,
And either way, it can cause problems,
true.
right? Because the person who shares too little can feel that, boy, you're just kind of too talkative. And the person who shares a lot can think then is how you just close off. So
You just gather information.
yeah, you just gather information and you don't share anything, right? So to whatever extreme, well, I don't want to say extreme is kind of too much of a extreme word, but to whatever end of the spectrum you go, it can cause a challenge in the relationship.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so as you mature in your relationship, as you mature in your marriage, there needs to be a discussion as to how do we share, right? How first understand the socialization aspect of sharing. And a lot of time that you have to discuss family dynamics. You have to discuss what was allowed in family and what was not allowed. And you look at all of that. And then both of you have to have an understanding of how we are going to share. Because again, you can't necessarily adapt your family orientation when it comes to sharing, because it might not work for you in the relationship. So both parties have to look at the situation itself, and you have to come to that understanding of how do we really go about sharing information. What is it that we are comfortable with? And if we are not comfortable at one stage, can we have the discussion and kind of grow into sharing more? And to use examples again, at 17 years of marriage, I am sharing more now than at year one.
On year one.
Right? And again, it goes back to socialization.
Yes.
Right? You grew up in a family where sharing was a part of your whole family life. It was not necessarily a part of mine.
And also, as you said, the couples, it's important for couples to have a growth mindset.
A growth mindset, true. True. You're shooting some gems tonight, man.
It's important for couples to have a growth mindset, because the idea is that how we were in year one, no, and we are now at year 17. It's gonna be totally
It's going
different.
to be, yeah.
But the idea is that we have a desire to improve. We have a desire to have a healthy relationship, and with that desire, then it motivates us now to change.
Yes,
it motivates
yes.
us now to
I don't like the word change.
to improve.
I like transform.
Okay, transform
Yeah,
like a butterfly.
I like transform.
To transform and to be empowered and to grow,
Yes,
and to consider each other's needs.
Yeah.
And to consider what is
Very
good for the
true,
relationship.
Very true.
So it's so this discussion about boundaries in marriage, it's really all encompassing. It's really all encompassing, and it's a good discussion, and we hope that you are finding it useful. We hope that you're enjoying it as much as we're enjoying it. I hope you're taking the gems, right, making note of them. And we want you to tell others about this program. We're asking you to share, to go on the Facebook page, to go on our YouTube channel, the Lbwradio network, and tell others about it. Ask them to join, forward it to them, because indeed, as much as we are having this discussion, we are growing, we are learning, we are being transformed
Yes, we are being transformed.
And level up your marriage is about finding ways, providing tools so that you can grow and transform in your marriage. You can be empowered, you can be better than you were yesterday, and you can continue to grow with the help of the Lord. Because let us not fool ourselves. Marriage isn't easy, but definitely a successful marriage is possible with the help of the Lord and with the mindset of both individuals, who want to have a great marriage, who have the desire and his intent on making a difference. I think we have a comment.
Thank you. This was awesome. Good food for thought.
All right.
Wonderful.
Thanks
This
so
has
much.
been Level Up Your Marriage. We are back live and well. And we want you to join us again next week for another discussion on boundaries in marriage. This might be a 2 or 3 part discussion.
Yes.
We look forward to having another discussion with you and engaging with you again. Wherever you're joining from, we want to wish you a very pleasant night, morning, afternoon, wherever you are. And we were happy to engage with you this evening. God bless. Level up your marriage.
Make it never take